Hi guys, Furious Fighter here. I'm going to be making another YouTube video and hope you enjoy. We're going to be on a boat and it's going to be really exciting. So, see you later. Look at this water.
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Can everybody hear me all right? Alrighty. Thank you for coming out with Destiny Harbor Tours today on this. It's actually turning into quite a nice afternoon. Now, as we move straight out onto the harbor here, you can see just how small Gig Harbor actually is. It is only about 2.5 miles long here by about 0.4 of a mile wide. It's also quite shallow in here. Back there at our dock, we had just about 15 feet of water underneath the boat, and that's only because it's the high tide right now. Out in the middle of the harbor, it's only 45 feet deep at the highest. The 18 boats in the Gig Harbor fishing fleet. These are purse seiners. They go up to southeastern Alaska, usually for between 3 and 4 months out of the year. They fish primarily for salmon. New Oregon and Island Queen haven't left so far this year, I believe, but flooded into this area. And a good chunk of them were also from what we often today refer to as the former Yugoslavia. They built tons of these boats. At one time, there were over 50 purse seiners on Gig Harbor. Nowadays, there's only about 18 of them left. Classic. Now, the Veteran was actually still fishing commercially up until about 20 years ago. But then it sat very neglected up in Ketchikan Harbor, and it actually sank briefly. But it's been raised and beautifully restored now. It's part of the Gig Harbor Heritage Fleet. It's got all the original equipment on board. Now, one thing you might note about all these fishing boats here, they're all around the same size, aren't they? Yes, in fact, not a single one of them is over 58 feet in length. That is a U.S. government limit. It's supposed to limit the amount of fish that they can take on board. Now, that worked all fine and dandy for a long time, but then the fishermen figured out a bit of a loophole rule. You see, the government never regulated how wide...
That little house is the oldest house in Gig Harbor. Oldest house in Gig Harbor.
Straight below us, it is the wreck of the 98-foot steamboat Burton. Now, the Burton sank out here February 22nd, 1924. The old boat had been tied to the People's Dock, which used to run alongside the right-hand part of the harbor. But sometime between midnight and 1 a.m., the ship's boiler overheated and caught the boat on fire. Now, it was cut loose from the dock to prevent the rest of the pier from going up in flames. Eventually drifted out into the harbor and sank about 3 hours later. There's not much left of the Burton today, but it is a pretty popular dive spot, despite being right smack dab in the middle of the main traffic channel on the harbor. Now, the People's Dock was right out in front of this gray building over here on the right. This is, of course, the most famous building in all of Gig Harbor. That is, of course, the world-famous Tides Tavern. Originally, that was the West Side Grocery, and it was built back in 1910. The People's Dock serviced all the steamboats on Puget Sound. Between the late 1860s and the early 1930s, there were between 300 and 900 steamboats operating. This is the very narrow and shallow entrance to Gig Harbor. Now, what with this fairly high tide, and the tide is actually still coming in, it's about 90 feet wide, maybe. It's actually more like 85 feet wide. On the lowest tide of the year, it's maybe 40 feet wide. Getting in and out of here is kind of like merging onto Interstate 5.
It's a light tower, a tiny one.
Vashon Island over there. It's about a 16-mile long island here in Puget Sound. A little bit farther up to the left, maybe the 10 or 11 o'clock position, the big bluff over there with all the trees on it, the beige cliff faces. Staircase. It's a little cable car that runs on rails up and down the hill. It's called a funicular. There's actually 2 of those down here. They're mainly used to transport furniture furniture and/or building materials and groceries up and down the cliff. Most of the other homes are accessed using small staircases.
Hey guys, that's it for the video. I'll see you next time. See you on the flip side. Bye.